Hall of Famer Eric Dickerson.
What's up, everybody? I'm Matt Leinart, 2004 Heisman Trophy winner.
Hey, I'm Zane Gonzalez.
Hi, I'm Matt Barry from ESPN. You're getting ready to watch one of the best college football podcasts ever. It's the Harris Highlight Show.
You're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you're watching the Harris Highlight Show.
And you listen to the Harris Highlight Show. Enjoy it.
Na 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 na.
Coming to you live from beautiful Monrovia, California, in my own backyard. This is quarantine edition of the Harris Highlight Show. Joining me this week is our college football analyst, Josh Schaefer, our college football expert, Lyle Goldstein, with our executive producer, Brady Klain. I'm your host for the evening, Blake Harris. Boys, can you hear me fine with my Yeti mic that I got on camera?
It sounds wonderful, Blake.
You sound wonderful, Josh. By the way, you got a nice looking hairstyle going over there. I mean, what do you got? A little pompadour action going on? It's a little extra fluffy.
Does it look like
there?
it? So
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. I mean, I started to really need a haircut. I was just scraping by, and my girlfriend's mom helped me cut my hair a little bit. But I don't know what it is. For the last couple of days, whenever I put something in it on top, like it just looks massive. But I don't know. We're sticking. It's also very hot today here in LA. So
It is. It's about
every time I run my finger through my hair, I feel like it's sweat.
Yeah, when I did my 10-mile run today, it was a little hot out there. It's 97 right now in Monrovia, so 97 at 5 p.m. That's not fun. Brady, you mentioned something about a brand new backdrop. This kid has a Tito's vodka football helmet.
Oh yeah.
Now, Brady, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked, but did you take a generic helmet and put a Tito's bumper sticker on it, or does Tito's actually have their own helmets?
So here you can see. It's a prop helmet. It's got like a plate on the inside, so you can't actually wear it.
Oh.
It's like it says for ornamental use only. So
But it still has the ear pads in it. So
it has the pads in it, but it's a real helmet. It's not painted on. There are decals on it. But I just was over at someone's house helping out, set up some cable and some Wi-Fi, and they're like, "Hey, I'm like, can I borrow that for the show?" He's, absolutely. It's our intern Brett, so he and his dad hooked it up there. Josh, I saw you threw the hat on a minute ago too.
For viewers that don't know, Brady is the brand ambassador for Tito's vodka. If we're all getting it, yeah.
Josh with two different hats.
Yeah, Brady, that's the hat that my dad wears like every day because he loves it so much.
It's a great hat.
I've
been rocking the Tito's visor lately. That's
not a sponsor, the Harris Highlight Show.
Not a sponsor.
However, there is going to be a show one day down the line where we are going to all drink Tito's on the show and talk college football.
To say it hasn't happened already, Blake,
that's also
is
true.
lying.
Maybe we're just all heavyweights and you guys haven't noticed. Well, what's going on over there in Kirkland, Washington?
You know what? My Tito's hat is somewhere like buried in my closet. If I could, my Wi-Fi's cutting out, isn't it? My Wi-Fi cut out.
Like Brady's is going out.
I don't know, but for a second it said that you were on Brady's thing and Brady was on your screen, and now it's just like flipped for me.
No, things are good. You know, any day it's not raining here is good. I was gonna say I'd break out my Tito's hat too, but it's somewhere like buried in my closet. So you know, I don't want to step away from the good old camera.
All right, so Brady's back. That's all good. So for those of you that are watching live on YouTube right now, welcome. It's Wednesday night. Normally we do these on Tuesdays, but Josh had a very special date yesterday that he absolutely could not miss. So it's great to see where we rank on Josh's scale of importance. That's all good, Josh. So we are going to be going over some latest college football news, not a whole lot, but some notable things to talk about. And pretty much what we want to do is we want to have half the show essentially be a Q&A. So I know a lot of people always have questions for us. We never have time for the Q&A. So if you're watching right now live on YouTube, if you're interacting in the live chat, we're not going to be answering questions now. So don't go typing out the questions because we're not going to be able to find them. If you have any college football related question, it could be about players, teams, hot takes, our opinions on things, anything college football related for the 2020 season, save it, come up with it, because in about 25 minutes or so, we're going to be spending about 30 minutes or so answering your guys' questions. We want to get to as many as we can. We were potentially going to open up the Zoom link so fans could join our Zoom and ask us questions there, but haven't really tested it yet. Don't want to have any issues. So in the coming weeks, if you want to get on the Zoom call with us and ask us questions, we'll be doing that in the future. So as I mentioned, 20-30 minutes or so, get those questions lined up. But there is some college football news to talk to first. And I guess let's start with the Justin Ross news. Lyle was our own BK. Lyle broke the news to all of us, 2 days ago? For those of you that don't know, Justin Ross, the star wide receiver for Clemson, who was likely going to be a first-round pick in the 2021 NFL draft, probably one of the 3 or 4 best wide receivers in college football, is going to be out for the 2021 season. Now, it's not too often where one of these star guys misses the entire season, but the fact that it happened 2.5, 3 months before the season even has started, the news has already come out. He has a problem. I forget what the official term was. I think BK was explaining it to us, but essentially, long story short, he has a problem with his neck and his spine that requires surgery. And there's not only the chance that he might, the chance he's missing this entire season, there's a chance he might not ever play football again. So there's a chance that Justin Ross has played his last snap of football for his career. So guys, what were your initial, before we get to what this means for Clemson, what were your initial thoughts when you heard that a guy like Justin Ross is out for the rest of the season?
Real quick, I'll jump in and give a quick explanation as best I can for what it is. Essentially, it is a part in his neck and back where it's a spinal fusion. So it really shouldn't be connected, and they are. And so how he was able to play football for this long with this problem is really, I don't want to call it mind-boggling or scary, but I think scary is the best word for it, because one wrong hit, and that's a pretty bad injury for him.
Yeah, it's not a great situation, and I think it's kind of a big hit for Clemson too. With the way that the roster is built, they're gonna, in terms of on-field talent, they're gonna figure something out, and you're gonna, Clemson fans will put their trust in Dabo, as they always do, and they'll figure it out. But it's kind of a huge loss, and it's disappointing because this was a guy that we all kind of expected to be, if not one of the top receivers off the board, one of the top players off the board potentially next year. So kind of disappointing, and I'm interested to see what it does to the to the draft kind of prospectus last year, or the wide receiver landscape across college football. It's definitely kind of disappointing for him, obviously, but it's also kind of interesting because I'm interested to see what's going to come of it,
Yeah, I mean, you just talked about this upcoming draft. I mean, you look at the returning core of college wide receivers for this upcoming year, and people talk about, Matt Miller talked about that this wide receiver class has a chance to be as good as the previous one. And then you look at some of the receivers returning to college football. I mean, first and foremost, Jamar Chase, but then you look at everybody below him, Justin Ross, Rondale Moore, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. That was kind of the core. And now Clemson is losing their star wide receiver, but more on the case of what this means for Ross. I mean, you feel terrible for the guy. This isn't even, this isn't a broken arm. This isn't even like a torn ACL where it's a 10-month to 12-month recovery time. This is serious. He really may never play the game of football again, which is so sad and unfortunate to see, because this guy's future was so bright. I mean, he was an absolute tower, a skyscraper of a wide receiver. He caught everything that came his way. And he was going to be the number one guy for Clemson, but now not only is his college career probably lost, or not college career, but his 2020 season lost, but his football career might be lost. And we're kind of just going to have to follow the status of his recovery time in the process. But all you can do is kind of just send your thoughts and best wishes to the guy as of right now.
One of the things that I first thought of when I saw this arise was before I even saw what the problem was. I'm like, oh, he's going to do like what De'Aaron King did, sit out a year, essentially red shirt until he can go to the draft without getting hurt. But then you realize what it is. And it's like, all right, wow, this is more of like an Isaiah Austin scenario, from the NBA. He was such a good prospect in the NBA, was a first round prospect, and found out he had, a heart condition or a blood condition of some sort that, could have essentially killed him if he kept playing. And so you see this now, and is this something you can recover from? Is this something you can come back from and make it back to the NFL, which obviously is every college football player's dream and hope. And he was a guy that easily could have gone this year if he were allowed to, and was one of these guys that is going to be the top receiver, or was supposed to be the top receiver in college football. So like Laz said, you really do feel for the guy.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough situation because, well, one, it's a good thing that they found it when they did, because one bad hit and dude may never walk again. It's going to be interesting for Justin Ross because now it's bad enough not playing for a year, how that's going to affect his draft stock. The fact that he's not going to play for a year, and if he decides to enter the NFL, which I don't know, I mean, it's still a year out. The doctors have to clear him. But let's say if the doctors clear him, they say, okay, you're good to go. If you're these NFL teams, it's like, yeah, the talent's there. But with this history and the fact that, again, one wrong hit can ruin this guy's career, it's like, I can't see him going maybe it's like at least like the third or fourth round, unless it's just straight up like the doctors are like, it's got to take some insane hit for it to happen. Like he's fully good to go. I mean, this is like, it completely changes his draft stock, just even if he's ruled healthy. So it'll be interesting if he's ruled to play, if he wants to return to Clemson for a year. I think for him, that'd probably be the smart decision. Come back, show that you're able to play, unless they're saying he's still going to be a first or second round pick. But this changes, the trajectory of his entire career. And again, if you're an NFL team, I personally don't think I'd take a chance on this guy.
This isn't like a Tua, dislocated hip. Yeah. This isn't something like that. This is much worse. This is much more severe.
Yeah. Gary or Josh can even attest more to this, but even with like the Terrell Lewis pick that the Rams made, because people have questions about his health and his injury status, right? But like, I think this is more serious even than that. Like, this is a spine neck injury. Like, that stuff is not to be like messed around with. That is almost as serious of an injury as you can have. Like the neck spinal cord area, that's kind of the danger zone, so to speak.
Yeah. That's one of the biggest concerns in football at every level at this point is the neck and spine and the head injuries. And so this is not something to take lightly. I understand what Lyle means with the Lewis pick, but I just don't. The Lewis pick is something that I could see more than just the Rams, taking a gamble on. This is not something that teams are probably going to go after and take a risk with. It's obviously too early to kind of think about things like this, but maybe it begs the question, like, what do you do if you're him? What's the best decision? Is it to go back and try to play another year and risk getting hurt again? Or is it trying to go and do workouts for teams? Obviously go into the draft. We wouldn't get picked, obviously, because nobody's going to take a risk on that, but maybe go do some workouts, try to sign as a free agent somewhere so that it's a team not taking a huge gamble, but go and see if you can play rather than go immediately back to school and risk an injury. Is that something that he'd be willing to do, or if that's a smart thing to do? I don't know. It's too early to tell, I think.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant, kind of with the Lewis thing. Is Lewis still has a chance to play and get healthy and be good? That's what I meant with the Ross thing. This is more serious than that because it's an injury of the neck and spine area. And I think Josh has a good point. I mean, maybe that's an option he has to consider. Well, first and foremost, I think he has to fully get as healthy, quote unquote, as he can get with this injury. And then he's going to have to make a decision. So before he starts thinking, too far along the road of, do I go back to Clemson? Do I declare for the draft? Do I think about just becoming an undrafted free agent, assuming I don't get drafted? I think all that comes second after how healthy can I get? Because, I mean, there's always the option. He's just going to have to hang it up.
Yeah, so he's out for the season. Guys, what do you think this means for Clemson's national championship hopes? I mean, they're still probably the favorite, if not the second or third favorite. But, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, he loses his number one target. Their next best guy is Amari Rodgers, who, again, I mean, is a solid guy. But you're going from a dump-off of a guy that's going to be a first-round pick to a guy, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of draft stock he's going to have. I mean, he's been decent at Clemson, but all of a sudden now, I mean, Trevor Lawrence, again, you're losing your best target. So for Clemson, how badly do you guys think this affects them? If you guys even think it affects them at all?
The talent's there. I mean, I think that's obvious. I think that the talent is there. And, you know, when you've got Trevor Lawrence throwing the football to a plethora of different players, I think that's a good sign. They've got a couple of weapons behind Justin. I mean, you're losing your top guy. I'm not trying to, you know, there's no way around that. You're losing your top guy, and Trevor Lawrence is going to be losing his favorite target. But the talent's there. Maybe when we get more clarity on what's going on with college football this fall, I think we'll get more clarity on who's going to emerge as the guy for that team now. I don't know. It's kind of tough. I think ultimately they'll be okay. Maybe they're not national championship favorites entering the season, but neither was LSU last year. So.
Yeah, and that's what I was going to say is Blake brought up the name Amari Rodgers, and all of a sudden, in a very quick time span here, he has been absolutely propelled into being the number one guy because, I mean, Trevor Lawrence goes into the season thinking, I'm losing T. Higgins, but I still have my other security blanket in Justin Ross. Well, now in the snap of a finger, both those guys who were 6'5" or 6'4", 6'5" freaks of receivers are done. They're gone. Higgins to the NFL, Ross with the injury. So now very quickly, all this kind of pressure is going to fall on Amari Rodgers. Amari Rodgers had one good year in 2018. Last year, his season was okay, but I mean, when you just look at the basic numbers, he didn't also get the target share that he's probably going to get this upcoming season. So I think a lot of the X factor for Clemson is how much can Amari Rodgers do as the presumed number one receiver. Aside from that, I mean, Clemson has a couple recruits coming in that are fairly highly ranked, and with a team like Clemson, there's always guys waiting in the wings. So I'm sure somebody's going to step up, and I'm sure Trevor Lawrence can make just about anybody on that roster good. But it's just a question of who is going to step up and kind of take that role.
Oh, I was waiting. I thought Brady was going to say something, but yeah, I mean, I agree. It's a tough situation. I mean, this could potentially, help his draft stock, but again, when you're going from a guy like Justin Ross, who has first round potential, to a guy like Amari Rodgers, I mean, this just it hurts Clemson's whole receiving core. Overall, I think Clemson. I still think that they're probably the favorites. I mean, they're just so good. I don't think losing a guy like Justin Ross is going to be detrimental. But again, let's just say something happens to Amari Rodgers this year. Let's say Amari Rodgers comes out in game 1 and tears his ACL. I don't have Clemson's wide receiver depth chart in front of me, but I don't know who Trevor Lawrence would be throwing the ball to if he doesn't have his top two guys. So it kind of all Amari Rodgers has the chance to be Clemson's most valuable player this year because, again, if he remains healthy, at least he's a solid option. If he goes down, again, I mean, I don't know who Trevor Lawrence is going to throw the ball to. So I still think that they got to be national championship favorites, but I think this takes them from being something maybe 4-1 odds. I probably put him at 7-8 odds, something like that, just because, again, he loses his number one target.
He's just going to have to start throwing to Dabo's kid.
Oh, yeah.
That's true.
So does Dabo's kid go from being the 8th string to the 5th string now?
All right, so according to their depth chart they've got here, so Justin Ross is the number one they don't have their, you have the 3 wide receiver positions. Typically, I guess X, Y, and Z. So ASU, for example, has an H receiver, which would for ASU is a slot receiver. Whatever, they have it differently on here. So they just have them all listed as wide receivers. So Ross, Amari Rodgers is going to be a senior. Joseph Nagata, I think that's how you say his name. There's a Brandon Spector, I believe is his name. Frank Ladson, Cornell Powell, and Will Sweeney. He's 4th-year senior. He's the guy.
And that's the other thing, too, is Amari Rodgers is a slot receiver. I mean, he's little. He's 5'10". Trevor Lawrence, we've kind of hit it into the ground at this point, is used to throwing the ball to 2 absolute skyscraper type of receivers. So now it's going to be a question of, who's going to be the downfield threat if Amari Rodgers is primarily the slot guy.
Yeah, so Clemson, they got a lot to figure out. It's a tough blow for them. But on to the next bit of news, guys. We had a transfer.
I got one more thing, too. I mean, don't forget about Kirk Herbstreit's kid, who's a wide receiver there, too.
That's true. That's true.
Ty Herbstreit.
It's true.
All right, so we got a bit of transfer news, guys. JT Daniels, former 5-star, who's currently at USC. He said he was going to the transfer portal a while back. He was still kind of like the big name that was still on the transfer portal market. Well, he decided last week to take his talents to Georgia. Now, I know a lot of people were kind of, intrigued by the move, considering that Georgia got arguably the best transfer quarterback from the portal, back in like January or something, in Jamie Newman, who's going to be, everyone assumes their starter. So JT Daniels, he goes from USC to Georgia. Right away, what my guess is, he still has to figure out whether or not they rule him eligible this upcoming year. What my guess is and how this is going down is that Jamie Newman, he only has 1 year left. He's going to be the starter this upcoming year. JT Daniels, he's going to redshirt, however that stuff works. And then in 2021, when Newman leaves, JT Daniels is going to be the starter moving forward, whether that's for a year, whether that's for 2 years. I'm not exactly sure. That's what I think is going to happen. Now, again, he could be eligible this year, and there could be a quarterback battle between him and Newman. I don't know how necessarily smart that decision would be, but again, that's what I have to think. Guys, what are your thoughts on JD Daniels, who could have gone to a lot of other schools, who probably, if he would have been ruled eligible, could have started a lot of other places this year? What are your thoughts on him deciding to go to Georgia, where they already have, a guy for 2020?
Well, Blake, a while back when obviously the season came to a close and people had kind of speculated that, maybe JT Daniels is going to leave. I want to say I saw something where his dad came out and said he's going to stick it out at USC. He's going to battle, and if he doesn't get it, we're going to go from there, whatever. The guy's got a USC tattoo, for Pete's sake. But I thought that he was going to stick around. I thought he was going to fight for the job. And if he didn't get it, he got his degree. He can get his degree and then leave as a grad transfer and play immediately. I saw a couple of reports that said that if he doesn't get the job, he's considering doing that. But if he leaves here and doesn't have eligibility, then you have that 1 more year behind Jamie Newman, who I don't remember where Blake had him in his video, but I think he's a top 10 quarterback in college football this year, especially going into a better program than he was at Wake Forest. That's an upgrade too, especially when you're playing immediately. So he comes in, I think he's a top 10 quarterback in college football. And then if Daniels plays behind him for a year, now he has a chance to go in and be the starting quarterback for Georgia. He's got good size, like 6'3", 215 or something like that. His freshman year, he's okay. He was on a really bad team. He threw for 2,600 yards in 11 games and threw a lot of interceptions, but he's shown that he could be kind of mobile. He was the Gatorade Player of the Year coming out of Mater Dei High School in Santa Ana or Orange County, wherever. And he threw for 215 yards in the first half of the Fresno game before he had a season-ending injury. And he I remember being at that game, sitting with my dad thinking, I think Daniels looks good in this first half. And then obviously he had the tragic injury. I think it's a good move for him. I think it's a good get for Georgia too. I saw somebody else on YouTube this morning ranting about how he's 10 times worse than Jake Fromm. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like, this is a huge get for Georgia, I think. So I don't think JT's bad. Good for him if this is the move that he thinks is right. And if Georgia thinks it's right, good for them. And personally, I think it's a good move.
Yeah, I think he was in a situation where he knew he had to do something in terms of his football career and kind of by no fault of his own. He has an unfortunate injury, and then Keaton Slovis was unbelievable. So, it kind of put the guy in a tough situation because he's older than Slovis, and if he had lost the job, he'd be sitting behind Slovis. So he thinks to himself, okay, I probably need to look elsewhere. So I think he honestly makes a pretty good move, not just picking a program that wins and competes for a national title every year over the last few years like Georgia does, but he goes to a place where Jamie Newman's going to be one and done because he's got 1 year of eligibility. A lot of people don't just think Jamie Newman's one of the top 10 quarterbacks in college football. People think this guy's a legitimate first-round pick, potentially, as long as he has a good year. So if you're JT Daniels, here's a guy that was insanely highly recruited out of high school. He throws a really good deep ball. He had a lot of good flashes in his freshman year. And he also, but you know what? He had some hills and valleys. There were points in his freshman year where he looked a little bit like a freshman. So if he takes a year, he learns Georgia's offense, he sits behind a guy like Newman, and he just continues to develop his game, I think he's got a chance to get back to not get back to being, but become a really good college quarterback come 2021. So I think the move makes a lot of sense.
One of the things for me that I always look at when a guy of this magnitude and this stature goes into the transfer portal is who are they recruited by coming out of high school? Like Lyle said, he was a 5-star recruit, one of the top guys, who's like the number 2 prospect out of California. And now he made his way to Georgia. On his original list, Georgia never offered him. He really didn't get many SEC schools. He got Bama. Okay. He's a number 1 recruit coming out of California. Of course he's going to get Bama, but Georgia didn't have any interest. Georgia didn't have any offers for JT Daniels at the time. So one of the things I enjoy looking at is, all right, how did he get from here to here? They didn't want him now. Why do they want him now? And that's one of the things where you look at it, and we see it a lot, where a guy, I think it was Joey Yellen, ended up going to Pitt, right? He wasn't recruited by Pitt from ASU. He wasn't recruited by Pitt at all and somehow found his way there. It's a good fit. I think it's a really good fit for JT. I mean, like Josh said, you saw him play and he showed really good flashes until the injury. He has everything it takes to be a very good quarterback, and sitting behind Newman for a year. I mean, yes, that's going to suck sitting, not playing for a year, but we've seen guys sit out for a year. We've seen guys be benched for a year, whatever happens, and then come back and boom, they'll win a Heisman, they'll win awards, they'll win all these things, and they'll be a top 10, top 15, top 20 first round pick eventually. So I think JT has the ability to. I don't think it would make a lot of sense for him to do this year, which who knows if he's going to even be playing this year with a transfer waiver, if he'll get it or not. But he's also coming off the injury, and that's one of the things where, like we talked about earlier in the show, you don't want to rush coming back from an injury.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that even in his freshman year, 2,600 yards is whatever. As a freshman, he was fine. Threw 10 interceptions and only 14 touchdowns. That's where the concern is. You think about him, he's a true freshman. He's 18 years old. He steps in and he's immediately playing in Pac-12 football as an 18-year-old. I thought he was bound to have some struggles. And you look at the offense that he was playing with. He had a rotating door of running backs. He had a true freshman receiver who he played high school ball with, Amon-Ra St. Brown, who is still developing. It was a breakout season for Tyler Vaughns, who obviously is now really good. And Mike Pittman was just one of the first picks of the second round. And that was the only real leader he had on his offense. I think this year, Kedon Slovis stepped into a good position, number one, because he enrolled early and he trained with these guys for months before the season started. And he stepped in and played really well. Obviously, I think the coaching staff was good. The team was better. But he also had 4 really well-developed receivers around him. JT didn't have that as a freshman. He had Mike Pittman, and that was it. So with the more that he continues to get better, I think he would have had a good year this year for SC. I don't know. Kedon had a great year. But other than that, what do we know about JT Daniels other than the fact I think that there's potential there?
Yeah, that's the tough part. I mean, when you have a guy like Slovis who was so good, I mean, you got 2 guys where, under Graham Harrell, I wouldn't be shocked if Slovis throws for 4,040 this year. I wouldn't be shocked if JT Daniels, if he would have won the job at SC, if he would have thrown for 4,000 yards and 40 touchdowns. They're both so good. The offense it's so inviting for a quarterback. So it does kind of suck for JT Daniels because he did nothing to lose the job. I mean, as a true freshman, he was fine. And against the one game against Fresno State, he wasn't awful. But I think this is a great move. Hopefully, he doesn't try to get eligible this year. He saves that for next year. And the thing is, I forget what the names are, but Georgia, they got some top, star quarterbacks coming in in a year or two as well. So Georgia, I mean, just quarterback central. They got so many guys that are just fantastic quarterbacks. It looks like they're set for the next 3 to 4 years. So overall, I thought it was a smart move on JT Daniels' part. I guess now he's got to get a Georgia Bulldogs tattoo to go next to that USD tattoo that's on his knee. But guys, unless there's anything else,
do you get another tattoo, or do you try covering?
You get another tattoo. I think you get another tattoo. Just get an arrow that goes next to it. I think that's what you got to do.
Or get a Georgia one just right next to it.
Yeah. There you go. But boys, unless there's any other news, anything that you want to touch upon briefly, are we ready and good to move on to the Q&A?
Yes.
I sent one thing of news last night in our group chat that was, it was pretty heartbreaking.
What about the Bison?
Yeah. Corso the Bison, the North Dakota State mascot named in honor of Lee Corso, is retired, and they let him loose on a prairie to retire. So good for him. Congratulations.
So for those of you that are watching right now in the live stream, I just did a comment in the chat that's going on. The next 30 minutes or so, however long we want to do this, we are going to be answering your guys' questions, college football related or just life related. If you have any fun ones, that's the thing we always say for our show. The fun questions, the unique and different questions, those always get top priority because we want to answer something that's different. So again, anything you want to ask us, go to the comment section. I'll be moderating them. I'll be picking out some ones for us to answer. So guys, let's get this underway. This first one comes from Carson Ward. Who's better, Kyle Trask or Kellen Mond? Or I guess who would you rather have if, you have to have a team? Who do you want as your quarterback?
It's a good question.
Trask has Trask has some NFL upside, and he was certainly an upgrade from Felipe Franks last year in a Florida system where for a few straight years now they've had a little bit of a lack of success at quarterback. Mond's been up and down too. Like I know he's got a lot of confidence in himself, and I know there was high expectations for him going into last year. I would probably take Trask, but it's not like a landslide. I'd say it's fairly close.
I think I'd say Trask too, but close, because there was a time when I was excited about Kellen Mond, and now not so much. But I think a lot of people around the country actually like Kyle Trask a lot. So, and like Lyle said, he might have a little more NFL upside. So, I think maybe Trask.
Blake, what if you have to make a video? Say Trask comes out and just dominates college football this year, and it would be another domino of the Felipe Franks empire.
Another
just add on to the video.
Yeah.
So many people have been commenting on that. Like, did you really just waste like 6 minutes of my life?
I watched it today.
For those of you that don't know, Felipe Franks is the reason that LSU won the Natty and that Joe Burrow is the #1 pick in the Heisman winner. If you don't know what I'm talking about, just go watch that video on my channel. But yes, it'll be another domino effect about the Kyle Trask coming in.
I hope he does, so that this will continue to go on, and then we'll find out that there were recruits that Florida had that now that he is dominating are decommitting and going elsewhere.
Yes.
This goes on for just years, and then in like 10 years, you can release like part 6 of this video and how it's been like a 15-year plan.
I like it. All right, this question comes, guys, from Freddie FTW. How well do you think Mississippi State is going to do under Mike Leach?
Look, they've got KJ Costello now, another guy who people have some, decent praise for in terms of his NFL future. He's big, he's strong, he's got a good arm. And under a system like Leach, we're going to assume they're going to throw the ball a lot. So if the playbook gets opened up a little more down there in Starkville, then I think this team, at least offensively, has a chance to really, make some noise here in the SEC. I think if you want a number, I'll give them like 8 wins. How about that?
I was not a huge fan of KJ Costello's at Stanford, but I always thought that if he was maybe in a different system and somebody gave him the keys to the offense, that maybe he would be a little bit better and get more respect on a national level. Now this is his chance to have that respect. And I think that obviously this is going to be a rejuvenated offense at Mississippi State, but more so rather than just the team as a whole, it's going to be a big change for KJ Costello. I think this is a chance for him to really take advantage of the opportunity in front of him and prove to people that he can be an elite college football quarterback with maybe some NFL upside. And especially with a guy like Mike Leach in charge, I think it'll be interesting. So I'll go along with Lyle. I think they get at least 7 wins this year, with a chance for 8 or 9.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, KJ Costello, like I remember I was looking at his numbers in 2018. Like he was pretty good. I think he had something like 3,500 yards, close to 30 touchdown passes. So now you put him, Stanford, that's a team where if they score like 20 points, that's considered a victory for them just because that's how they play. So now under Mike Leach, I think it's safe to say, it seems like every quarterback under Mike Leach, if you don't get 4,000 passing yards, it's considered an unsuccessful season. So I think with him at the helm, granted, I don't know win total, what to expect. I think Lyle said like 8. I think that's a good number. Josh said 7. That's what my guess would be, around kind of like the 7 to 8. They're going to be putting up points. It's just a matter of, how's their defense going to look? Because they're going to be scoring 30 a game, no problem. It's just, is their defense going to be holding opponents to under 30 or 40 a game?
Like you said a second ago, Blake, we've seen what Mike Leach can do to quarterbacks. We've seen the production. We've seen the output that they have in the college football landscape. Like you said, 40 touchdowns, 4,000 yards. That's pretty normal for a Mike Leach coach quarterback, whatever you want to say. I lost the vocab and words for it. Yay, English. It's a tough language, kids. Learn it. The one thing that we see, though, is yeah, Stanford put up 20 points a game, and that was big time. But a Stanford quarterback isn't a slouch. It doesn't matter if it's a good one or a bad one. A Stanford quarterback isn't a slouch. To be able to get to Stanford, to be able to succeed at Stanford is a challenge in its own. And then to be the quarterback at Stanford is even, more difficult. So his ability to jump from, Pac-12 to SEC play and what he can do with Mike Leach, I think it's going to be interesting, and cannot wait for the most enjoyable college football game of the year. Last week of the season, the Egg Bowl is just going to be incredible.
Yes.
Josh just nodded in approval.
That's what I was
Some of
gonna
the
say.
coaches.
Now I hope we don't see a shift in coaches here, but that conference at this point is only missing one person, and in my opinion, that's Herm Edwards. So can't have him.
It's the biggest
Personally, I say
characters.
you cannot have them. But with Mike Leach and Lane Kiffin and Coach O, man, if you were to
And
toss
Saban.
and Saban too,
Yeah.
Good.
Keep throwing them in.
who's the Vanderbilt coach?
I don't remember what his name is. All we got to do now is get Herm Snyder, then get Bill Snyder out of retirement and get him in one of those teams. And then you have all those guys.
Derek Mason.
Derek Mason. Yeah.
Hey, he's
Big
high.
looking dude.
I like him. Too bad Vanderbilt, is awful. This next
I
question,
would not,
guys,
dude.
this comes from Slay YT. As of right now, North Dakota State or Oregon, who do you think wins that week 1 matchup?
Listen, real quick, I've been hyping up those first 3 weeks of Oregon's schedule for ever since I saw it. Oregon, it's Ohio State, North Dakota State, and Hawaii in the first 3 weeks. You could not get 3 different teams all at home. I love their schedule. The year after that, Oregon's going to go to Columbus and play Ohio State there. But I mean, I'm going to go first here. I think there's no question that Oregon wins, but this will be the first true showing to see what a North Dakota State once again have a relevant quarterback in the news. So let's see what they can do.
They do.
Well,
They've got a good quarterback, and they've got a good team around him, too. My thing is, I think a lot of people are very high on Oregon. And I'm not saying I'm not high on Oregon. I'm saying that I think there are a lot of question marks with Oregon. And I've said this a couple of times during our off-season podcasts here. There are a lot of questions I have with Oregon. I want to see how they're going to play out. And with it being an early game of the season, I'm not saying North Dakota State's going to win. I'm saying we're going to have some questions answered early in the season for the Ducks. I think Oregon wins. I don't think it's by a landslide. I think this is a close game.
Yeah, North Dakota State's a good team, and even more so than that, like you guys kind of touched on. I mean, kind of the consensus top 3 quarterbacks for 2021 in some order or another is Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Trey Lance. Well, if Trey Lance comes out and he just absolutely puts on a show against a team that's going to be ranked in the top 10 like Oregon, I mean, this guy has a chance to really kind of even more so burst onto the national stage. I think it's going to be a great test for North Dakota State. And I'm on Josh's side too. Like, I know it's going to be a tough environment playing at Autzen, and I know Oregon's probably going to be pretty good. But I think this is a close game. Like, I think it stays within 10 points. I don't think Oregon comes in and just blows them out of the water.
Yeah, I mean, North Dakota State, they very well, if they were in the FBS, they'd probably be one of they receive AP poll votes for crying out loud. This is a good team. Trey Lance, he's a stud. He had 42 touchdowns, no interceptions last year. As Lyle said, he's like one of the top 3 quarterbacks probably for next year's draft. And if he comes out and he beats Oregon and looks good doing it, he potentially, I'm not saying he can overthrow Trevor Lawrence, but there's going to be some question on whether or not he wants to be like the second quarterback or maybe even the first, whatever the spread is, because Oregon's going to be favored in this game. Whatever the spread is, take North Dakota State, because all I know is North Dakota State, those fans are going to pack Autzen. It's going to be a rowdy game. And again, North Dakota State's a good team. So as Lyle mentioned, they can keep it within 10. For some reason, guys, some part of me just has North Dakota State winning this game as of right now. I just have this gut feeling that they're going to come out and they're going to, upset Oregon, because it is the first game of the season. Week 1, it's always a difficult task for everyone. And when you're Oregon, a lot of expectations around you. North Dakota State, they're going to be coming out, because I think for Oregon, they're going to be prepping for Ohio State the following week. So, I mean, that is a tough 1-2 punch. But as of right now, I got the edge to North Dakota State. But again, whatever the Oregon spread is, take North Dakota State with the points. I think I know why you're feeling that way, Blake.
I mean, Oregon couldn't beat Bo Nix in week 1 last year. Now you're asking him to beat Trey Lance in week 1.
That's true, Lyle. That's true. This next question, this comes from Matthew Detweller. Should Bryce Young start right away at Bama? So Tua Tagovailoa was gone. So now they got Mac Jones, who looked pretty good last year in the games where Tua was out. I think he made 4 starts. I want to say 4 or 5 starts. And they got Bryce Young coming in, who was a 5-star quarterback. I don't know where, I don't know what number he was. I don't know if he was like the first, second, third best. I'm not sure. I just know he was 5 stars. Obviously, a lot can happen between now and the beginning of September, but who do you guys think should get the start? You got 2 really good options. You can't go wrong with either one. Who do you think? I guess not who should get the start. Who do you think ends up getting the week 1 start for Bama?
I would not be surprised in the slightest if Bryce Young got it. I mean, he's a top dual threat quarterback coming out of high school, out of Mater Dei. Another Mater Dei guy, was committed to SC since he's like a sophomore behind JT Daniels. And obviously, once Caden Slovis goes off and USC gets another quarterback commit, he's like, dude, I'm out of here. I'm going to Bama. So he goes to Bama. I think it's really a good option either way. But here's the thing with Mac Jones. So he played in 11 games last year, right? Obviously, I mean, when you're blowing somebody out as much as Alabama is, you're going to get a chance to play. And also with Tua being hurt for a while, he's going to get a chance to play later in the year. So he played in 11 games. He only threw the ball 141 times, which is, for a backup, that's a lot. But like for somebody who's playing in 11 games, maybe not so much. For 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns, he threw 3 picks. Here's the thing with him. He had a completion percentage at 69%. And if you rank that with the top quarterbacks in college football last year,
it'd be very nice up there, man. Really nice. He'd be up there.
Yes. It's a really nice rating. He'd be top 10 in the country in completion percentage. Now, obviously, he doesn't qualify because he doesn't have as many pass attempts as some of these guys toward the top, but he'd be top 10. He'd be number 9 in the country. If I'm looking at something from teamrankings.com. He would rank 9th in the country in completion percentage at 69%. So he's accurate. He's not super flashy. I think Bryce Young is a little bit flashier, more flashy, whatever the grammatical term is. Like Brady said, English is hard. I think you got 2 good options. I think Jones gets it, though. He's also like a redshirt junior.
I like this question. I pulled up some of the comments for some of the Q&A questions we were getting, and I saw this one. I was like, I want to talk about this one because I'm with Josh. I think Mac Jones enters the season getting the job, especially with the situation that college football is in now, where training camp and practices are going to be limited. For a true freshman to come in there and only have limited time to win a job, even a guy like Bryce Young, who, to answer your guys' question, per 24/7 Sports, he was the number 1 ranked quarterback in the country and the number 2 prospect overall. Even a guy like that is hard to do in such short time. But also don't be surprised if we see something similar happen to Bryce Young at Alabama than what happened to Trevor Lawrence at Clemson, which, a little bit of a backhanded plug, another clickbaity video Blake did recently about the Kelly Bryant thing, never being given a fair shot.
Was never given a fair shot.
He was sandwiched between 2 first-rounders. And he played a full year.
Yeah.
So
just on that thing, it's like not a lot of quarterbacks go 16-2, take their teams to the playoff, and then get benched. Like, I get he got a full year to start, but that still sucks. Like, he got screwed there. But yeah, you're between Deshaun Watson and Trevor Lawrence.
I was gonna say he's stuck with a generational quarterback waiting in the wing behind him in Lawrence. I think this similar type of thing could happen to Bryce Young at Alabama, where Mac Jones goes out there. He's similar to Kelly Bryant. He's not losing him games. Bama's 4-0, 5-0. But he's not super flashy. And like Josh said, Mac Jones won't lose you games. He had a fine campaign last year. But at some point, similar to also what Nick Saban did with pulling Jalen Hurts midseason, being in the national title game to pull in Tua, I wouldn't be surprised if halfway through the year, he goes and gets Bryce Young because he thinks he can elevate him to another level, and Young comes in midseason. So to start the year, I think it's Jones. To end the year, I think it's going to be up in the air.
Lyle, you brought up the point that I was going to make as well, and that is, how long of a camp do they get? How long of a training camp? How long of, do they have in the playbook? These guys are in the playbook right now. They're learning the playbook, but you can stare at a playbook all you want. You can read the study guide, but when it comes to the test, do you remember the information? And that's going to be the big question mark there. Is Mac has taken the test before at this level. So I think you go with Mac Jones to start. Week 1, I think it's Mac Jones. It's the safe bet. You saw what he can do in SEC play. It's not like it was at the beginning of the year in FCS. You saw what he can do in the SEC. You know what he can do at a high level, in a big game, in a high atmosphere. He knows the playbook already. He knows how the system works, how the interactions with coordinators, coaches, everything you need to know, down to the small detail. Mac Jones has been there. So I think he's the best fit already going forward, at least to start the year for Bama. But like you said, Lyle, who knows what we could see later in the year? Could it be a Hurts Tua situation? Most would guess yes at this point. Just to get Bryce in there.
I think Mac Jones, he gets the starting job to start the season, but I wouldn't be shocked if it's the thing where he's coming out, he's throwing 200 yards, 1 or 2 touchdowns. He's winning games and he's looking okay doing it. But then since Bama's going to be blowing everyone out by so much, we're going to get to see Bryce Young early on, and we're going to get to see how good he looks. So I think Mac Jones gets the start, but I wouldn't be shocked if by midway through the season, they go with Bryce Young, or maybe they just do something where it's like, Bryce Young gets a start here, Mac Jones gets a start there. Because I think Mac Jones is a serviceable quarterback, and I think he looked, like I said, he looked good last year when he got his opportunity. But I mean, when you got a guy like Bryce Young, who was, I think Lyle ended up saying he was the number 1 quarterback and number 2 overall recruit, it's going to be tough to keep him on the bench. This next question comes from It's Benji. How well do you think LSU is going to be with Miles Brennan in the scheme of things?
Real quick before we touch on that one, I just pulled up the Alabama schedule. They start against USC, week 1 USC, and then make the jump to Georgia Southern. So
that's a storyline for Bryce Young.
Yeah. So where do you go there? Do we see something with, hey, look, remember what happened to Blake Barnett? He started against USC. He didn't play well. He got benched. A backup quarterback came in. Story there. Does the same thing happen?
Yeah, the 2 quarterbacks who started that game did not end up being the starting quarterback for those 2 teams.
Yeah.
That season, like 2 weeks later.
And then Georgia week 3 for Alabama.
Yep.
Just the balance of schedule. Do you start Mac Jones week 1 and Bryce Young week 2? What do you do?
So guys, what are your thoughts on Miles Brennan?
I was going to say
to get through these questions.
I was going to say, to get back to the LSU question, Blake, if Miles Brennan plays well, I think LSU's set up for another really good year because he has personnel around him. The craziest thing about this LSU team that just won the national title is, for as good as Joe Burrow was, for as good as so many guys on that team were, a lot of people believe the 2 best players on that team are still currently at school, Jamar Chase, Derek Stingley. So you've got a leader on defense. You've got the best receiver in the country on offense. As long as Miles Brennan is at least serviceable and gets Jamar Chase the targets he needs, there's no reason LSU is not going to be right in the thick of the competition to win the SEC again. And you know what happens when you win the SEC. You win the SEC, you're likely going to the playoffs. So if Miles Brennan can step in and kind of figure it out quickly, there's no reason LSU won't compete.
I think this is going to be an LSU team that's very similar to the one that we saw in 2018, where maybe Brennan steps in and he's a serviceable quarterback, kind of how Joe Burrow was 2 years ago, and it was still an LSU team that won 10 games. I think we could see something like that at the least, with a lot of the weapons that they still have. And like Lyle said, a lot of people think that the 2 best players on the entire roster are still there with Chase and Derek Stingley. So I don't see a reason why they don't win at least 6 games in conference, where you play 8 games in conference in the SEC. I mean, they did that 2 years ago. They went like 5-3 or something like that, or 6-2 or whatever it was. They should win at least 6 SEC games, and they'll probably have a 10-win season. Whether or not that takes them to the playoff or not, it's going to be tough to follow the season they just had. If they go 10-2 and don't go to the playoff, or they go to a bowl game, what if they finish 9-3 and then win their bowl game? I think it's a good year for LSU.
You know,
Yeah.
like one of you guys said a second ago, I think it was Josh, where you have that one lackluster year like Burrow did. And Blake, we mentioned this earlier, the Felipe Franks video. I watched it today. And the one thing that, blew my mind when it popped up on the screen were Joe Burrow's 2018 numbers. In retrospect to what he did this year. 2018, Burrow had 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. 1-6. This year he had 6-0.
Yeah.
So, Siri just went off. Hi, I didn't say, hey, Siri. So that's the thing we see is, all right, can this LSU team recover? And I don't think they will ever match what they had this past year. So now the expectation is, well, we saw what happened here. Why can't we do this every year? That's an unrealistic expectation.
That's the
And
tough part. Yeah.
To think they'll do that again this year, I don't think anybody thinks that they're going to duplicate what happened last year. No matter how many of their top pieces, like Lyle said, they have returning, it doesn't matter. You're not going to have that once in a lifetime magical season happen back-to-back years.
Yeah, I mean, going off what you just said, it's like LSU, they can go 10-2. Miles Brennan can throw for 3,500 yards and 30 touchdowns, and it's like, wow, what a letdown of a season they're having. I mean, I think losing Burrow will hurt, losing Joe Brady will hurt, but I think LSU, they're still going to be fine. I think Miles Brennan's going to thrive. He already knows the offense. He got some limited action last year. Did you guys see that Jamar Chase is now wearing number 7?
Yeah.
He got the he got
honored to wear number 7.
Yeah, which normally goes to the best defensive player, but now he's got the number 7.
Goes to the best overall player.
Best overall player, because I'd assume next year Stingley as a junior would get the honors to be number 7. But I thought that was cool that Jamar Chase is going to a number 7 now.
Yeah, that's like whoever's trivia question was like the most common USC football number linebacker or whatever it was is the LSU version of that is number 7.
Right. Well, guys, so, I mean, we got, like I said, about 20 so minutes, but I want to go through as many questions as we can. So for these next few ones, it's kind of not speed round them, but make them a little quicker. This next one, we have to go too in depth. Now, Freddie FTW already asked a question, but I do want to bring this up. Arizona State punter who participated in the NFL Combine, Michael Turk, he went undrafted. He was an undrafted, free agent, didn't sign with anyone, just got approval to return to Arizona State. Do you guys think that more players will attempt to do this in the future? I'll be the first to say, I didn't know this was even possible. I thought if you enter the draft as an underclassman, you don't get drafted, that's on you. I didn't know that there was some waiver out there that you have the chance to come back. And he still has 2 years of eligibility, so he still can play for 2 more years. So one, I didn't know this was possible. Maybe because he's a punter, things are a little easier for him. Like I know when I made my video on DeAndre Francois, he's at Hampton now. He opted to go into the draft. So I wonder if he'll be able to return to Hampton for another year. I'm not exactly sure. So if this is something that can happen, do you think that we could see more of this in the future? But because I feel like players have tried to do this, I just don't remember hearing about it.
First of all, I want to point out that I didn't think it made a lot of sense for him to go to the combine in the first place.
Yeah.
Like not even one time. It did not make sense to me. But now that we're here, I mean, I think it's great. I think he's really good. Excited that he's going to be back for another year. But this definitely seems more like a Brady thing to know about. I did not know that this was a thing. But it kind of sounds like how in the NBA you can declare for the draft and then still come back or like test the waters and see what it's going to look like. But obviously the draft was a while ago, so I don't understand really.
Yeah, I've never heard of this before. I'm with you guys. I mean, like you said, Josh, in the NBA, you can test the process. You can, go through the combine without hiring an agent. And then there's a cutoff date where you have to announce, are you going to keep your name in the draft or return to school? I mean, the entire draft happened. He went to the combine. He lit it up with the bench press, which I don't know how much that matters for a punter, but he did. He goes
That's
undrafted.
what I'm saying. They need to be doing
It's just more of a flex thing. It was just like
a leg press. Well, who cares how much he can bench? And the fact that he benched like more than anyone there.
Wow. So he does that. He goes undrafted. There were punters going over him, by the way, guys like Braden Mann and others. He does not get signed. And I'm thinking to myself, because weeks have been going by, and I'm thinking to myself, like, is Michael Turk like gonna get on a team or what? And then all of a sudden today we see, oh yeah, he's returning to school with not 1 but 2 years of eligibility. I've never heard anything like this. But you know what? Good for ASU. They've got their punter back. Yeah,
ASU did get their punter back, but they also had I almost said free agent, a transfer in from Florida State who was one of the top punters in college football last year, along with Michael Turk. And the Florida State punter, I think, averaged like 40-something yards per punt. Turk averaged a little more. But the waiver that Turk had, it was essentially unprecedented. It's happened only a few times in history. And what he said was, it was, since he's such a specialist position and such a specific position, a specific talent, due to COVID and the coronavirus and the way that it affected pro days and his ability to work out post-combine, have actual specific workouts with teams, go to teams that had specific needs for the punter, they said, all right, well, there really wasn't much need for him to be at that stage in the NFL process. So he got the waiver because there was really no way for him to prove what he did, which I'm kind of surprised you didn't see more undrafted guys. Whereas, there was only one guy who went to the combine skill-wise that hasn't been signed or drafted, and that was Shea Patterson. And so he was obviously a specialist. Like I think Lau said earlier, it's a very specific position. It's not in the limelight. It's the punter. You see the reason why he can come back with 2 years of eligibility and another top punter transferring in. This is going to be, surprisingly, you have a battle for the punter now. In years past, we saw ACU. We're like, man, they just need to get a good punter.
Yeah, so I figured as much. I figured it was because he was a punter. So maybe these other guys, it won't happen in the future. We got a phone one, guys, from Jerome Erickson. Start, bench, cut. Sam Howell, Jaden Daniels, Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
I'll take this one. Pains me to say, starting Sam Howell, because that means I'm benching JT Daniels. Good Lord, Jaden Daniels. We talked about JT quite a bit. I'm gonna bench Jaden just for now. We're going to play this thing out, right? I need to be at training camp. I need to see. And sorry, DTR's cut. I mean, I just think the first two are like leagues better than DTR. At least
I've got the same list too. Like DTR is absolutely the one that's cut. I mean, don't be surprised to see Sam Howell and Jaden Daniels be like the first two quarterbacks off the board come 2022. I mean, and Slovis will probably be in there too. Those three. But yeah, I mean, those two, like Jaden and Howell, are just on such a different level than where DTR's at. And I'd probably slightly take Howell over Jaden.
I would agree with you guys on that one. I think, go ahead.
I was just going to say, it's going to be really interesting to see what Zach Hill does with Jaden Daniels this year. New offensive coordinator coming from Boise State, different offense. I don't know how different the scheme's going to be, but I think the play calling is going to be very different. And I think he's going to play to Jaden's strengths. So I'm very intrigued to see what Jaden does this year.
Seeing Josh mix up Jaden Daniels with JT Daniels reminds me of that show where we were talking about how like Jaden Daniels is like having such a great year. And I was like, yeah, JT Daniels, man, he has been fantastic this season. I mean, he is really lighting it up. And you guys are like, yeah, he hasn't played in about 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh, yeah, wrong one. I got it.
When you said that Shane Buechele was your Heisman favorite.
Hey.
Yeah, Blake, way to make a dumb Heisman pick.
Okay, I feel like Shane Buechele for Heisman's a little more respectable than Wilton Spate for Heisman.
Oh, next, baby.
By the way, that's a video coming in the future weeks. What happened to Wilton Spate? Where's he at now?
But Spate was starting, though. Like, he wasn't a good quarterback, but he was starting.
I know.
He was starting at Michigan. He's a Michigan starting quarterback.
Wasn't he decent that one? Who am I thinking of that had like a decent – so they did like a Michigan like behind-the-scenes thing. They did like a Michigan behind the scenes thing that like I watched on like the Big Ten Network.
Big Ten Network. Great series.
And I was like, yeah, like this is a really good series. And it was one year where they like weren't very good. But I want to say that there was a year like recently where he was really good. 2016, he threw for 2,500 yards and 18 touchdowns. He was fine. Never mind.
All right, guys, this comes from Carter Chapman. Do you think Miami is going to win the Coastal this year? They have the best tight end in football and defensive end. And, well, I guess it's a multiple-part question, but we'll stick to this one. Do you think, guys, Miami can contend in the ACC and potentially knock Clemson off? Because, as he mentioned, I think it's Brevin. I forget what his last Brevin Jordan, I want to say, is the tight end from Miami. So they got Brevin Jordan, Gregory Rousseau, who is like Chase Young 2.0. Some people think he might even be a tad better. Some different experts. This guy's going to be a top 5 pick next year. And they got D'Eriq King as their quarterback now for Miami. So this is a team. Do you think they potentially can make a push and knock Clemson off, out of that ACC kind of like dictatorship that they're under, just saying, yeah, we win every year. You guys don't even have a chance.
I think to put money on them to knock off Clemson from where we sit right now is not a good bet. Just because like I thought Miami had a chance to win like 9 games last year because their schedule was weak and they didn't do it. Now, granted, like you said, they're bringing in a guy like D'Eriq King who should just elevate them to levels beyond what the guys last year were doing. And then, you have Brevin Jordan to complement King, and then you have Gregory Rousseau on the other side of the ball. They have pieces, but I want to see how they actually look through like 4 or 5 games before I can say that they're going to compete with Clemson. I think they can win the Coastal. to answer that first question, I think they could definitely win the Coastal. I mean, that side of the ACC is always up for grabs, but I kind of want to wait and see how they play before I'm ready to say if they can hang with Clemson.
Can they win the Coastal? Absolutely. I don't know if they're going to, like what Lyle said, I don't know if I can rightfully say right now whether or not they can dethrone Clemson. So I'm not even going to answer that part. In terms of winning the Coastal, they can absolutely do it. But again, like Lyle said, we spent the summer with a friend from Miami, and he told us all the time how they were going to be really good. And we were like, yeah, there's nobody on your schedule. And they were awful. They were terrible. So I don't know. I mean, I think that division's up for grabs. I think they win the Coastal. I find it hard to imagine any of these other teams on here as clear-cut favorites to win the Coastal right now. So yeah, I'll say Miami wins the Coastal, but I'm not even going to touch Clemson right now.
Yeah, I think you guys hit it. I don't know, the stream cut out a minute ago, so I didn't hear what Lyle had to say, but I'm just going to, what Josh said briefly there, I'm guessing is very similar to what Lyle said. They can easily win the Coastal. Hey, there we go. They can easily win the Coastal, but for a team to dethrone Clemson right now, it's got to be something special. No matter, Justin Ross or not, Clemson's still, I think, the clear-cut favorite.
All right, guys. Yes or no? This comes from Cole Converse. Will the Cyclones, the great Cyclones, who win a mascot battle, I mean, I don't know how you lose, will they beat Oklahoma in Ames for the first time since 1961 this year? Yes or no? Do you think that can happen?
Brock Purdy. Can it happen? Yes. Will it happen? Yes. I don't know. I mean, Oklahoma, I've got a lot of questions. I mean, you bet against Lincoln Riley. I mean, really, is that the best idea? But the way that I look at it is there were two games in which I thought that Baylor was going to beat Oklahoma this year. Not where I thought they were going to win, where I thought Oklahoma would win going into the game. And there were points in the game where you were starting to think, I think Baylor's going to win this game. And Oklahoma figures out a way to turn things around and win the game convincingly, just like they did to Texas a few years ago. So I think this is realistically a Big 12 title match right here too. And if they're playing in Ames, I think that gives a little bit more of an advantage to Iowa State too. I think it could happen. So.
Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, but was it Iowa State that played Oklahoma really, really close last year?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, it was, right? Yeah,
they lost on the 2-point conversion or something.
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a 2-point conversion. Brock Purdy's good. I'm gonna say it could happen. I don't personally think it will, but it certainly could.
Why not? Right? If we're talking hypotheticals, why not? Because
I love hypothetical scenarios.
Hey, you know what?
Those are
I haven't said this in a long time. I'm taking Iowa State to win this game because why, Lyle?
Because why not?
Because why not? We saw them play them close last year. Another year, another quarterback for Oklahoma. What is this? 4 quarterbacks in 4 years for Oklahoma?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, yes, Lincoln Riley's done a tremendous job growing quarterbacks, having them become top-level players. And we're going to see most likely Spencer Rattler get the starting job for Oklahoma this year. So he's a fun guy to watch, but, he doesn't have the experience yet. He's only played a couple snaps in a couple, late game scenarios. So why not? Let's have Iowa State win this one.
Iowa and Iowa State, they just seem like those two teams that just cause hell for everyone. And the fact that it's going to be in Ames, I got the Cyclones winning this game against Spencer. I don't know what point in the season it is. I'm going to give the edge even more if it's kind of earlier in the season, maybe like before like mid-October, unless it's in November, because Spencer Rattler by then it's going to be more, polished and whatnot. But I'm going to go with the Cyclones because, why not? This question comes from Jeremiah Batista. Who is the legitimate third Heisman choice? So, I mean, I would assume you got 1, 2, Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, however you want to go. But guys, let's just say that I go into, my AdSense, take out the money that we've all made from the that I've made from the show, and I give it to you guys. I split it up to the 3 of you guys, and you have to put all of it on a player, not named those 2 guys, to win the Heisman. Who's it going to be?
I want to say Keaton Slovis, but I'm not going to
say it. Just say it, man.
No. I'm gonna. I think the safer pick is Sam Howell.
Hey, think about it this way.
Sam Howell.
Think about it this way. I think Keaton Slovis is like a 40-1 odds. So You're turning quite the profit here. If it all
Doesn't
goes
Ian
well.
Book have better odds than Keaton Slovis?
Yeah, I think he does.
I
Oh,
think they're like the
good lord.
same.
That is bad. That is bad.
Ian Book is a 30-1 favorite right now.
I think CBS even had him higher than that somehow. If I had to take somebody else, I think we've talked about, I think this question in some sense has been asked. It might have been worded differently on a past show. And I think I said De'Ara King, or maybe he's a sleeper. So that's one if Miami's good. And then the other, I'd say Rattler, just because, look, you're playing in Lincoln Riley's system. I know he's young, but his numbers are going to be there. Oklahoma, I'm sure, is going to win double-digit games. So if I had to put my money on somebody, it'd be King or Rattler.
Maybe Jamie Newman.
Yeah, that's another.
I said Rattler a couple weeks ago when this question was brought up as well. Like, who are some sleepers? And Rattler is a guy that definitely, like I said a minute ago, in Lincoln Riley's system, anything is possible. Josh, Keaton Slovis is 40-1 odds. So not much far behind. But here's a super sleeper. You ready for this? Ready for the super sleeper? Ready for my super sleeper? Brady White at 125-1.
That's nice.
I
like it better than Colton Spade.
Yeah.
He got softer at the end. I like it better than Colton Spade. You know what? Ian Brown just mentioned in the comments. Y'all are sleeping on Chuba Purdy. I'm gonna skip over Chuba, I think his name is. But
Chuba Hubbard, you mean?
No.
Chuba Purdy.
Oh, Chuba Purdy.
Yeah, but Brock Purdy, the game in Ames. There's his Heisman moment. If he wants it, take it.
If I'm jumping on 125-1 odds, I'm also going to throw money on Jaden Daniels too.
Yeah.
Now there's some nice Heisman odds out there. Like I said, Slovis at 40-1. I think that one's that's a good one because he's going to be lighting it up. And if they could just win the Pac-12, that's going to be some easy money at 40-1. I think Jaden Daniels, he was like 125-1, I think as well.
125,
something like that. So yeah, that could be something as well, where you literally just throw $20 at that and just say, why not? And that can happen.
So
hold on, guys. I got a text in the podcast chat. Yes, Josh, I was going to bring this up before you go, Brady. Yeah, College Football Obsession said Blake is starting to look like an 1800s presidential candidate yet again. I was going to read that too. And yes, I am. I shaved the beard about a week ago, and we're coming back. So by July 1st, we're going to have the campaign in full swing.
Yes, you will.
You're going to run for mayor of Monrovia?
Yes, I will. I was going to earlier because I learned I just have to sign some papers and I'm on the ballot. So
dude,
next time that happens,
That'd
I'm
be
running.
awesome. That'd be sick. So CBS has the top 3, let's say top 4 favorites for the Heisman. Justin Fields at 7-2. Trevor Lawrence at 4-1. Jamie Newman is the third favorite, 10-1.
Which I get he's going to be fine, but him being the third favorite, I don't like those at all, especially at 10-1 odds. I don't like those.
And Spencer Rattler's 12-1 with Mac Jones, Sam Ehlinger, and De'Ara King coming in at 20-1.
That could be a fun show going over to the Heisman odds because you have to take into account value, but just some of those, I get Spencer Rattler at 12-1. That could be a kind of a sneaky good one just because of what we've seen at Oklahoma recently. I forget what it was. I think last year Joe Burrow was 125-1 odds, if I'm not mistaken. And it's the year prior, Kyler, I think he was something like 40-1 odds to begin the season. They have a thing where I think Marcus Mariota is the only preseason Heisman odds favorite to actually win the Heisman over the last 10, 15 years. So it's not going to be one of these top guys. It's going to be some of these lower guys that have the lower odds to win. So then if you're trying to make a bet, if you're trying to win some money out there, go for some of those sleeper guys. I'm trying to find some comments here, guys, because there's a lot of people, they have a question. They'll just copy and paste it a ton. So I'm just trying to go through and find, College Football Session. He said he'll be my running mate for my presidential campaign. So there you go. That's a campaign right there. I think I can go for. Let's see here. Let's see what we got here.
While Blake's looking, I'll kind of add on to what you were saying about the Heisman favorite stuff.
Thank you.
And yeah, no, that's a good point about usually these favorites for whatever reason. Maybe it's the pressure, maybe it's the early hype. I don't know. But a lot of these guys just fall off. Look at Trevor Lawrence last year. I literally thought there was no way in the world any team could stand in his way. I thought he was going to blow everybody out of the water, and he was going to win the Heisman by a landslide just because of what we saw at the end of 2018. And then for the first few weeks of 2019, you know what? He looked human. Now, the second half of the year, he played more like how people thought he was going to play. But because he had a tough first few weeks, he was out of the Heisman race. He wasn't even invited to New York. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see who in those like mid-tier guys. I mean, maybe it could be somebody lower like Joe Burrow. I mean, maybe Brady hits the money with the Brady White pick. Who knows? But yeah, I mean, the De'Aaron Kings and the Spencer Rattlers and the Jamie Newmans, and often that's like kind of where the gold mine is with these Heisman guys. It's usually guys that start the year lower.
All right, I'm going through some of these. Here's a good one. This comes from Everything Sports. Who's the best wide receiver besides Jamar Chase? I mean, everyone kind of pretty much, for good reason, has Jamar Chase as the number one wide receiver. But who do you think is the next best in college football this year?
I think Rashad Bateman's got to be up there from Minnesota.
I'll say either Jalen Waddle or Rondale Moore. You're muted, Brady.
Thanks, Lyle. I was looking something up on the other page. I was gonna go with the Rondale Moore pick. I really like that one because we saw what he did his freshman year, but not last year. But I was gonna go Waddle as well. I think he's the clear cut.
Yeah, I mean, Rashad Bateman, he's up there. Jalen Waddle, I mean, what he did is like the fourth option. I mean, this guy can literally light it up, or him or Devontae Smith, or, Rondale Moore. I mean, if Rondale Moore can bounce back and be healthy, that can be a great one right there. I'm going to try to pick one final question, guys. This seems like a fun one. This comes from Joseph Rucker. The most underrated team that can make a run at the playoff this year. The most underrated team that can make a run at the playoff.
In terms of most underrated teams, I have a few, but for somebody that I think is going to make a playoff run, I don't know. I mean, I think, like I said, I think I don't want to contradict myself here, but I think there are a lot of questions going on with Oregon. I really don't know what to expect from them, but I think they're going to be good. So maybe Oregon's a quote unquote sleeper for the playoff. Because I mean, you got to think probably Ohio State, Clemson, maybe Bama, either Oklahoma or Texas, maybe. For me, I think I've got two teams that for me are locks preseason, and it's Ohio State and Clemson. Other than that, I don't really know. So you know what? I'll say Texas. I think Texas is going to be good this year. They're back.
They'll be back.
They're not back, but we'll see if
they're back.
Why not?
I mean,
why
they
not,
could be
Lyle?
back.
Because why not?
Why not? Why not?
Because why, Lyle? Not because why not?
Oh, why not, Lyle? Because why not? Dude, I don't even know. It's hot. I don't know.
Trey's sitting out here in it.
At least you guys have
Why are
water
you
on your
outside?
table.
Because
Hey,
the
whoa.
internet connection in my house is awful, and this is where I get the best connection. Because if I'm in my room, I can't connect, so I'm outside.
I mean, do we call can we call USC a sleeper? Like, is that a sleeper
Yeah.
team? Or-
Yeah.
Okay.
I think unless like Ohio State, Clemson, Bama, Oklahoma, maybe like Georgia. Aside from that,
Yeah.
I think any team is considered like a sleeper team to make a playoff run.
Okay, then I'll keep it with two teams in the Pac-12. I'll jump on what Josh said about Oregon, and I'll say USC. And the reason for both of those is because, one, you win your conference, that's huge. But two, both of those teams have such marquee games at the start of the year. Oregon playing Ohio State, USC playing Alabama. If one of those teams pulls something out and wins, that's your whole strength of schedule. I mean, you can afford to lose a game. You can do whatever. You have one of those signature wins on your resume, and then you go and win your conference. Like, there's your whole resume. So, I mean, if one of those teams wins one of those early games, I think they can absolutely get into the playoff.
For me, I don't want to feel like Blake for this one from seasons past. And
That could be a good or bad thing right now.
well, the way we saw it end for the three of us was good, for you was not. But honestly, like Lyle said, those one strength of schedule, those make or break games, if Oregon can go 3-0 to start the year, that would be huge for them. So I'm going to throw Oregon in that mix because
Yeah.
they have CJ Verdell, a great running back returning for them, and especially Brady Breeze on their defense, who's a great defensive player. So you're going to see a lot of different things being thrown and mixed around. So I'm going to go with Oregon. And also I'm going to throw another team that they played against us last year in the Rose Bowl. I'm throwing Wisconsin in there too. I think they have a good chance to make a run at the Big Ten.
Since when does beating an FCS team add to your strength of schedule? Because
You
for
see-
Oregon,
right.
it will.
It will, honestly. But I thought you were saying that, sarcastically, but for them, it actually would be
No, it
a
does.
solid strength of schedule.
Yeah, man, I still can't get over that beginning of their schedule, how rough that is. I'm gonna go with a few. I got some Florida. I think Florida, I mean, they've been improving year by year, and if Kyle Trask can take the next step, I think Florida, I think they can make a push in the SEC, and they can make a push for the playoff. Oregon, that's a good one, but that early schedules, if Oregon can make it out of those first two games 2-0, then yeah, I forget who it was that said it, but they can afford like a loss. They can't even afford a bad loss if they pick up those wins. Penn State, I think Penn State's a sneaky one with Sean Clifford at the helm, Journey Brown. I mean, their defense led by Micah Parsons at linebacker. I mean, that's a really good thing right there. But it's going to be tough being in the same division as Ohio State, Michigan, those kind of schools. And again, Minnesota. I mean, if it wasn't for a late season collapse last year, Minnesota would have been in the Big Ten title game. Minnesota potentially.
Hello? What was that?
Is it Deanna? Is Deanna there?
No, that was mine.
I know.
There's like some construction going on next door, I guess. Minnesota. I mean, they were so close to the Big Ten title game last year. They're returning a lot of their guys, and I think they have a chance to potentially make a push. Now, in regards to,
I should dress up like PJ Fleck for a show.
You should. I'm looking at the final AP poll from last season, how it turned out. So I'm trying to find like one just massive sleeper. So if we're gonna go with like massive sleepers, I'm gonna go with. This is tough. I think Michigan has a chance if all can go. If they can just beat Ohio State, they're going to be in the playoff. Texas A&M. I mean, Kellen Mond said that they think they can do what LSU did. They think they can take the next step in the next leap. So I think I'm still looking at this. The fact that North Dakota State got AP poll votes, that's remarkable. And don't sleep on Tennessee. Not for the playoff, but don't sleep on Tennessee in the SEC. But in regards to teams that could potentially make a playoff push, that's who I got. So, guys, I think that wraps up our show this week. Unless there's any final thoughts, final parting words that anyone would like to say before we sign off for the week.
Surprisingly, I have something. Surprise. We didn't touch on this on the news segment, but this is something I'm guessing Lau would want to talk about too, but Notre Dame Navy being moved from Ireland to Annapolis for the first time ever. These two teams will play in Annapolis, which is, a pretty cool, going to be a very tight, quaint environment there in Annapolis, which is going to be a lot of fun.
I found that shocking that it's the first time in like 94 years. I mean, where do they normally play? I mean, I assume Notre Dame hosts a good amount, but where do they? Was it that game a few years ago, Lyle, when they played it in San Diego?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they played in San Diego. I think they played at FedEx Field when it's technically Navy's home game. So usually it's just either in South Bend. They played in Ireland in 2012. And then, otherwise it's just like different locations. So, there was no way they were going to play it in Ireland this year.
No.
But, I mean, it'll be cool to see it in Annapolis.
Yeah. Also, I should have done this at the beginning of the show. I just completely forgot to. But for those of you that are still tuned in right now, so we got about 40-something people that are on this right now. The last 2 weeks, in case you guys missed it, we drafted college football all-time fantasy teams. Now, the four of us, we had some solid teams. We had some really good teams, but we asked you guys, the fans, to vote on our Twitter at the HHShow_ and tell us who you think had the best team. Guys, the results are in. So let me share with you. Coming in last place with 12.5% of the votes is Josh's team, unfortunately.
Well,
But Josh has
5% is pretty sad, guys.
Yeah, but it
shows that there are a lot of people who watch the show that don't know football past 1990.
Yeah, I think Josh's entire team was like pre 1990. I don't even know how many 2000 players you had. Maybe like Matt Leiter, and that was it. I can't remember your team, but yeah, Josh 12.5%. It happens.
Hey.
It's disappointing, but there's always next year. But also, if my team played on the field, we'd win. So.
That's also true. Coming in third place with 21.7% of the vote is Brady.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well done,
At least
Brady.
I
Well
wasn't
done.
last.
You weren't last.
Hey, whoa.
Now, the guys,
Well down.
things were close between Lyle and I pretty much for the most part. It was back and forth. I was in the lead one day. Lyle was in the lead one day. I was in the lead one day. Lyle was in the lead the other day. Yesterday, when I tweeted out the final time saying final call to vote, I think there was like we had 14 hours left to vote. I was winning by 1%. Did I hold on to that lead?
Yeah.
In third place with 31.7%.
Second place.
Oh, sorry. In second place with 31.7% is me. I got second, which means in first with 34.2% of the vote is Team Lyle. So Lyle, the fans think you drafted the best team. What is your we'll give you the final message on tonight's show.
Lyle's first win. First win.
I was about to say this is makeup for all my last place finishes and all the trivias. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, I had a ton of fun doing the draft, and I actually checked the poll this morning to see, because I knew it was close between Blake and I in like the final hours. Yeah, I mean, you guys know I drafted a lot of modern guys on my team, and maybe that's what more the fan base knows. Kind of just how I drafted and what my motto was toward it. And I'm not saying this is right. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying like this is what I prefer is I think some of these modern athletes are like some of the most well-polished guys. Like for me personally, I'd always take like a Joe Burrow or a Cam Newton over somebody like Roger Staubach, but just me personally. So that's how I drafted it. And I was happy with the way my team turned out. And I'm happy to see I got some love from the fans.
I would like to point out that neither of you had a single player on your team pre-1997.
Oh, there you go.
Not one.
So that
well, again, that was kind of my motto. Like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but that's just kind of how I wanted to draft my team.
Well, the fans in the comments right now are going ballistic for Lyle, saying congrats, Lyle, on winning. It helps when your final two picks are Christian McCaffrey and Adrian Peterson. It's not bad when those are your two final picks. So yeah, Lyle, he wins. That was a fun time. Again, if you guys haven't already, make sure to follow the show on Twitter at the @HHShow_. That way you can interact with us, vote in the polls like that, and suggest what topics you'd like to see in future shows. But guys, yeah,
wait, we never said what our team's names were, did we?
I still need to come up with mine next week.
Come on, man.
Hey, before we go, guys, Junior says if Harris reads this and shouts it out, I will throw my chair down and dance. So
Take
Junior,
a video.
I'm
Tag us on
shouting out to
Facebook.
the world, throw your chair down and dance. But guys, this was a fun show. We'll probably be back next Tuesday as opposed to Wednesday. But then again, it doesn't really matter. Things happen. So make sure to follow the show on Twitter. That way you know when we're going to be live. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. This was a lot of fun doing the Q&A. We'll have to do it more often. And again, we want to get you guys on the Zoom call with us to see how that works in the future. But guys, any parting words before we sign off?
Lyle, congratulations.
And congratulations to Lyle.
Congratulations
Thanks,
to Lyle. All right, guy. Blake would have won with USC Mike Williams. That's probably what it would have been. It was the Mike Williams pick.
It was USC Mike Williams.
All right, then the Clemson one. If it was the Clemson one, I would have probably won. But guys, for Josh Schaefer, Lyle Goldstein, and Brady Klein, this has been Blake Harris from my backyard in beautiful Monrovia, California. Thank you guys so much for joining us live, and we'll see you all next week.